Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic. Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. At the table today. This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
Hi, I'm Andrew McCrea, host of the American Countryside and a farmer in Northwest Missouri. We head back to the Show Me State for today's conversation. And as farmers gather around the table once again, the talk turns to ethanol, an industry that drives demand, but also controversy. We have three farmers who join me at the table: Kyle Samp from Moberly, Missouri, Krystal Doolittle of Williams, Iowa, and Steve Olson from Plainview, Texas. I kick things off by asking the group a tough question. Has the ethanol industry already peaked?
I don't know that we're past the peak, but I could see a case where we're close to it. Gasoline demand is not going up like it used to be, in my opinion. I mean, you're gonna see more electrical vehicles, and that is gonna cut into gasoline demand, and I think it's gonna cut into ethanol demand too. With that said, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Krystal, are you worried? You're big corn, you're corn country, middle of Iowa. It's got to be on folks' minds up there.
Yeah, ethanol is a huge topic where I live. A lot of people are really passionate about it. We actually live probably 11, 12 miles from an ethanol plant and haul a lot of our grain directly there. I think I'd heard that 2017 was like the peak of the gasoline cars being sold, but I don't think you're ever going to get away from needing liquid fuel for transportation. We don't have any other way to, support the vehicles that are needed to do a lot of the heavy lifting, that aren't just like your nice little daily driver Toyota Prius or what have you. So I think you're always going to need something along the lines of your ethanol and your gasoline and your diesel. And right now, the best solution we have is ethanol. Right now, it's the only thing that's really helping slightly reduce our dependence on oil right now, in a way that you can't get from solar-powered vehicles or electric-powered vehicles.
Let's say we get rid of a third of the ethanol. What do we have for a price? Where are we headed?
Well, the cure for high prices is high prices,
right.
And we've seen that, and that's one of the hardest things to do is predict where those prices are headed. And we've got to become more demand driven, I think, than price, and whatever that takes to get there.
So here's another way to look at that: is if we reduce ethanol production by a third, we're basically you figure 10% of the fuel market is ethanol. If we take a third of that away, so you're talking about a 3% reduction in the available fuel. Is that what's that do to fuel prices at that point? We saw what a shock when all of a sudden some Russian oil was not available, what that did to energy prices. So if we get rid of ethanol and we remove 10% of our liquid fuel from the market, what's that going to do to energy prices that we don't really honestly have a good way to make up for right now?
So is ethanol sustainable? You mentioned sustainable. Is it part of the sustainable story?
I really think it has to be, because right now, what do we have for, your liquid fuel sources for your big stuff? I just don't see how you're ever going to have, an electric powered tractor in the near future to get all that stuff done, or semis or airplanes, And so I think for those things, ethanol is a great part of the equation and a great part of solving some of the problems we're facing going forward.
We've lived in a world where the government mandates, a certain amount of ethanol in the gasoline, but yet a lot of farmers don't like the government in their business. So do we need the government in the business in ethanol to make this work?
I think that it's good that we have the mandate, just simply because without it, we're basically allowing an oil company to destroy the demand for that product. I think that short-term demand would be fine. Ethanol is so much cheaper. The blending economics are so good. I think you'd be crazy not to keep that in the mix.
I'm just not sure how big a deal the government's role in that really is. I mean, because I think if it's truly competitive, if it's truly cost effective, I think at some point the market realizes that and starts to buy it. And when you think about oil prices being where they are today, I mean, surely it makes more sense today than ever has to have that as part of the fuel mix.
There are empty seats at the farmer's table. Want to fill them? Sign up today at pivotbio.com/farmers table.
Farmers have always taken care of what they value. They cultivated bountiful land and fed a nation hungry for progress. As Americans dialed up, precision on the farm led to yields once thought impossible. But when it came to nitrogen, it wasn't precise or predictable enough. Farmers deserve a nitrogen worthy of who they are and what their land can provide. And now there is one.
I know you're, and all of us are probably part of different, co-ops, commodity organizations, things. You're a big advocate. What should the commodity groups be doing? Or is there a role to play as we think about this transition going to, different alternative energy sources?
Yeah, I mean, I think just continuing to invest in, your biofuels is going to be a really important thing to do. And I know the thing that gives me a lot of optimism is knowing that ethanol companies are still investing in new plants. So, they're obviously doing their due diligence and researching the market and what they're going to be doing. So that makes me feel optimistic about it, and I think it's worth encouraging ethanol production.
Yeah.
I think we have to look at the impact that ethanol has had on the environment. And I mean, we know that that's been a positive impact, and that story needs to be told.
All of us want to tell this story, but sometimes it feels like it's a losing battle. I don't know.
It's hard to compete with negative press, especially when the negative press is going to come from areas that have a lot more resources than our commodity groups are going to have. And I can remember a time when ethanol was going to be the thing that we're going to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. It's going to clean up the environment. It's like everything was great about it, and then all of a sudden, like overnight, all the negative bad press came out, and we haven't seen that with electric vehicles yet. And I think their day is probably coming, because you're not going to watch a giant industry like petroleum just be like, well, we had a good run, boys. Let's get on board with electric vehicles.
One of the things that really was a big time eye opener for us. About 3 years ago, we had a group of Ukrainians come out to the farm, and just looking at how we produce cotton, because they were really wanting to take some of our practices back home and implement them, and to realize that these people are so poor that they're out getting the cotton stalks and taking those home and using that to bake their bread. I mean, for fuel to bake the bread, and we're thinking, all we want to leave them up for is wind protection. I think there's a perception that if I help someone from Ukraine, that's going to take away from my farm, and I totally don't believe that. I think it's I think we've got to figure out a way that we provide food and provide that stability around the world, because if you have a person that's hungry, I mean, it's national security to me. And I think if somebody's hungry, you can get them to do just about anything. And I think sometimes we miss that part of the equation.
Yeah. What we do really matters.
It does. It does matter. And we've got a great story to share with the world, and I think we're falling down on that part of the job.
So what does the future hold for ethanol? Only time will tell, but it's going to take strong voices from our side of the farm gate to ensure the industry gets a fair shake. We want to thank Krystal, Kyle, and Steve for offering their front row perspectives on this ongoing debate. I'm Andrew McCrea. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Farmer's Table.
We're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck.
Gosh, cow, dude! Yeah, in your cab.
There are over 2 million farmers in the United States. One of them is about to win some cash for their local FFA chapter.
I don't know that the public knows what they want out of sustainability.
If they're asking us to grow cover crops and to plant non-GMO, our expenses are going to go up. Yields are going to go down. At that point, we're not sustainable.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of, aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer?
You have to have nitrogen.
It's really a microcosm of one of the biggest questions that we face. Can we feed the world and save the world?
Visit pivotbio.com/originals to see these shows and more.